dancing to our theme song. I love it. I always say that every opening. Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the 165th episode of the AfricanMusicLaw.com show. I'm your host, Miss Uduak. I'll tell you very briefly how to subscribe, who we are, etc. But before we get into that, I have to say, you can already see it. I'm super excited about our guest. I know I say it with every single guest, but I really, really am excited about our guest. You get to meet her very, very soon. Let me tell you who we are. We are the African Music Law Show, and we are all about empowering the African artists and the creative industry at large. How do we do it? We do it through exclusive interviews, we do it through legal commentary and analysis, we do it through also just inviting some of the best talent and executives and professionals, everyone just coming in and sharing their insights as well. And of course, creating community independent of the podcast, independent of the live stream as well through our newsletter. So you can subscribe to our newsletter by going to africanmusiclaw.com, subscribe to the newsletter so you have all the updates on what's happening specifically on Africa or within Africa's entertainment industry and outside of as well. So welcome, welcome, welcome again. 165 episodes. Wow. That's amazing. I can't believe it. Hundreds of hours. And just thank you to everyone who's appeared prior to and those who continue to listen and watch. We're streaming right now on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, among other platforms. Again, thank you for spending time with us. And for those who listen and will listen to this as well, thank you so much. We appreciate you. Thanks for joining us in this wonderful community that we continue to create. So I told you I was excited about our guest today. Our guest today is Laurianne Speed. And let me just share a little bit more about who this amazing talent is. Laurianne Speed is a Vancouver-based neoclassical composer and pianist. Her live performances present original piano compositions, offering spiritual reflection. Aside from concerts and beyond providing impactful musical experiences, Laurianne's music leads to meditative journeys and brings musical healing to the participants. I have personally experienced Laurianne in a concert on Clubhouse, and I said, wow, she's got to come share her awesomeness with you all. So everyone, check out and meet the wonderful Laurianne Speed. Welcome, Laurianne. Laurianne, that was so beautiful. And that is just a piece of it. I listen to that all the time, streaming your music on Spotify. But tell everybody else other places they can find your beautiful, beautiful music.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's, first of all, so great to be here. Thank you so much. It's very exciting. Yes, please, on my Instagram, there's a link tree, and in the link tree, there is a direct link to my Vistas album, and that's on my Vistas album, and it's clearly laid out there on in the link tree. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. So let's follow this amazing journey that you create through music. I particularly like the fact that there's a reflective piece, and one of the reasons, everyone watching, that I wanted to have Laurianne on is I think the world is very chaotic as we're speaking right now. I mean, lots of anxiety, stress. We're coming off the pandemic. There's a lot more. We're seeing a lot of division. Nationally, here in the States, I know you're based in Canada, and globally, from protests to all kinds of stuff. It's just, it almost, you read in the history books, at least about the 60s, 70s, etc., or maybe predating that, and you never really understand what you're reading per se, because you've not lived the experience. But being in it now, you can totally see how, so that's what they were referring to. That's what historians have been saying. And I feel like we are in that kind of situation. So music has always been obviously a key part of healing, of restoring. And your music, I think, Lorianne, tends to have that tendency to really say, let's go back to what it's about, love, ultimately, and let's all realign ourselves. So I thought it was important to have you on to sort of provide that touch of it really is going to be okay, even though it might seem chaotic right now, because I
Mhm.
think your music really definitely does that. So everyone, I hope you really enjoyed that intro piece. So much more on her website, loriannspeed.com, lori-annspeed.com, Spotify, all kinds of different platforms where you get your major music, and major music streaming platforms also have her there. So, Lorianne, let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
How did music come about for you, and what
Mm.
inspires the work that you do?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. How did music come into my life? It's a great story. One of my favorite stories, actually. I um, I remember I grew up in the wilderness of BC, British Columbia, Canada, a very small logging and farming community on the north shore of Shuswap Lake. And I'd never even seen a piano, but one day in my grade 3 classroom, in rolled this big white piano, and one of my little friends knew how to play something on it, and I immediately wanted to learn. Show me what you're doing. Tell me what you're doing. And I didn't have a piano, and it started a very long campaign on my part. Please, can I have a piano? Please, can I have lessons? And it wasn't in my parents' wheelhouse. That they're a piano. Why would we get you a piano? You'd play it for a month and then it'd be set aside. So no, and I mean, I'm sure if I wanted to play guitar and sing country and western, I bet that would have been fine. But bless my family, country people, and so I bothered the piano teacher at school. I kept on with my parents. And then I tried to practice at school, and this piano was still in the classroom. And then I got my little friend to teach me. Long story short, that went on for 5 years. 5 years until one day, through our gate to our house, came the local piano teacher with his piano in the back of a pickup truck, and delivered me his piano, and thus began my life with music.
Amazing. How very thoughtful.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm forever grateful for that. And so I was very self-motivated, self-compelled, and it was a calling from the beginning. It was a dream that, I mean, the
Mm,
dream was first, can I have a piano? Can I have piano lessons? Then the dream became, oh, can I keep learning this? And then the
mhm.
dream, the next dream, could I study at a university? Could I, it just kept pulling me forward. The next thing, and
I'm curious with your family and with you, initially the concern with your parents, oh, you might just have it for 1 month and then discard it and go to something else, be
Mhm.
distracted. So at what point did you find yourself and they also observed that this was a calling, as you said? When
Mm.
did you realize, no, there's something more to it than just playing the piano?
That revelation, or that insight, I think, grows over time. I don't know that when I was that young that I could sense this was a calling, but I knew the passion was there and I couldn't let it go. And it and because no one was saying you must practice, I played it all the time. And then once my brother got a driver's license, then I could go to piano lessons, and he drove me. My folks didn't drive me to piano lessons, my brother. And but I just was so passionate about it and interested, and I did have a lot of interests. I was doing a lot of sports, and just a
Mhm.
regular kid, but every time there was some place to do this piano thing and learn, I did keep gravitating towards it. That's all I knew. I just kept wanting to learn more, and the more I learned, the more it was like a thirst that couldn't be quenched, and I still feel that way.
That's
It's a
amazing.
thirst that can't be quenched. There's something that still calls me, and there's still the dream, and the dreams just change, but they are like magnets that slowly pull me forward. Does that make
I
sense?
resonate with that because I try to
Mhm.
explain to people that's how I feel about the law. When I was a kid, I knew I was called to be a lawyer, an advocate, not even just, I mean, law for sure. And I keep explaining to people decades later, the hunger is still so
Mm.
intense. It seems insatiable. Like I can't satisfy it. So I totally get what you're saying. So
Mm.
let's expand this conversation a little bit more. I loved how you talked about your you getting into sports, right? And
Yes.
playing sports. And I know you're pretty good at that. So share with us a little bit of the kind of sports that interested you as well.
Oh, yeah, I was a rough and tumble tomboy girl. I had a brother, and the closest neighbors were also boys, and I just at a very young age was always playing with my brother baseball, and I loved it. I loved being strong, and I had a talent for it. I won all the track meets in school, always got all the ribbons and the trophy. And even in high school, I got Female Athlete of the Year award. And despite coming from a small place, I competed at a provincial level in track and field and played basketball. And
Mm,
that basketball, well, in high school, volleyball, basketball, soccer,
yep.
that's how I got
Yeah.
Female Athlete of the Year award. But then I went to college and I kept playing basketball, and it was a first string for the college I went to, and we won like the
Mhm.
Western Canada Championships, and then I went on to
Amazing.
university and like played basketball there, first varsity and then junior varsity, and then actually piano took over at that point, I have to say,
Mhm.
because I jammed
Mhm.
my thumb playing basketball. But all the way through that, again, like where I see a similarity is that, when you're training as an athlete, again, it's all these incremental gains, isn't it? You're constantly every day working on skill levels. And that I love that too, which is what I love in the piano is that constant if I just do this different, if I just do that a little differently, then I get this result. So the discipline, what some people call discipline, is a great
Mhm.
joy for me. And um, so all that was through school, in the younger grades, because I'm in the country. That was great socialization time. You're living on big tracts of land, and you don't have neighbors to go and just play with, so to speak. And so sports, we were doing sports all the time as fun. But I had such good coaches then, somehow, in this small place, that then I could go on and play actually at a very high level. And now, so that after I left team sports, I still had, well, I just transferred to other sports. Like I did whitewater kayaking. I went into telemark ski racing and extreme skiing. And I was an extreme skier for, like I was snow skiing full time. And that was great fun. And a lot of the people that I was skiing with went on to international skiers, international, careers you know, in skiing extreme. And now I'm really just doing slalom water skiing, and I do a lot of road riding and mountain biking. And this slalom water skiing totally has me, like, for years now. I've been training, like I had my goals again, like had to get to 28 off 34 miles an hour and ski. So I'm an expert slalom water skier, and I'm passionate about that like crazy. That's my summer life is
That is
that
all
water skiing.
amazing.
Yeah, right.
So
So
amazing, amazing, amazing. Yeah, I love sports as well. Volleyball, first love, played basketball,
oh
um, played why am I forgetting? Softball,
oh yeah, I
amongst
play
at
softball too.
at some point joined the wrestling team in my high school very briefly. It was all boys. They didn't have a girls wrestling, but I wanted to wrestle. Joined briefly, but left to go on to play more basketball, really enjoy the sport in terms of, I think something about basketball, whenever I do play it, and I tend to do it more pickup games now, there's
Mm,
just liberation and I find myself communing in some sort of spiritual way. I can't explain it when I play
mhm,
basketball, right? It's
mhm.
like you against yourself sometimes
Yeah.
on how far you can go. And I resonate with it with just all sports in general. And then the discipline that comes, not only individual sports, but group sports as well,
Mhm,
translates to everything else. And then in terms of piano, so in high school, I went to an arts magnet high school, and so we had a very strong music program. I was in the advanced music classes. Got to college, wanted to minor in music, and was
mm. Wow.
learning piano. But then part of the course assignment was to go to the opera and watch those and write about it. And at the time, I didn't have appreciation for that particular genre of music. That
Mhm.
was the only reason I said, you know what, I don't know how long this sorts of assignments are going to be, but this is not what I signed up for. I signed up more for the piano and other
Mhm, mhm,
instruments. I ended
mhm.
up leaving that and taken the second thing that really interests me, which was a minor in philosophy, rubbing minds all day, which complements the legal side as well. So
Yeah.
yeah, but love, love, love the piano as an instrument. Just a beautiful,
Mm,
beautiful instrument. Okay, so let's continue to walk this journey that you have walked through. Very strong, solid background in sports, the discipline translating into learning piano, finding out that you're gifted in it as well. At
mhm.
some point, you decide you wanna even learn piano in school. Tell us about that experience of getting that, continuing to refine your skills through training.
Mhm. Yeah, I know, like, in high school, in the last our final year, it's all about what are we gonna do now, and I so wanted to study piano. I already had that a dream, of this piano dream, and but all the way along there have been obstacles, and so starting late, which I started late, even though I really excelled and I went probably 2 grades a year, I still wasn't at the level required to get into a university program, but that was my dream. I wanted to get into university and just keep studying it. I was like, I needed it. Like, I just had such a thirst for this. Unlike yourself, perhaps, like even like classical music. How could that be? I'm from the country, and yet classical music called me so much. So I went to
Classical
university.
music is beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It touched my soul, I guess. And so I went to college studying something completely different because I wasn't at the level needed to meet an entrance exam to get into university. But while I was at college, couldn't leave the piano alone, and I didn't have an instrument again. And so I went down my street and knocked on doors, and till I found some people who said, "Yeah, you could use our piano. It's in the basement." I found a piano to practice on, and they very nice people. And so I started again, and I thought, well, maybe I could maybe now I
Mm.
can be good enough to get into. So that was first year college, and then I transferred to an even bigger university called University of British Columbia here in Vancouver. And while I was at college, I discovered that I'm a very good fine artist. I was doing a lot of fine arts courses, and I'd been drawing and painting since I was little, and
Mm.
that grew and developed. And I actually had a great portfolio, and I got into the university as a fine artist, not as a pianist.
No,
Uh,
wow,
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, and but yet, the first day in English class, and I'm sitting beside Stefan. I remember Stefan. He was sitting to the left of me, and he was in the music department. And I was like, I must have just turned right into a puddle, because he goes, "Well, why don't you get some lessons with somebody in the department?" And I
Mhm.
looked at him blankly, and he goes, "Well, I'll see if I can find somebody." So he goes off and comes back a week later and has a prof in mind, an audition time. And I'm like, okay. And that was like 2 weeks. In that 2 weeks, I'm in my school dorm, in the midst of like guys playing pool and music playing on the little piano in the corner, getting my chops back up because, of course, I hadn't played for a while, getting ready for this audition, and went to the audition. I never
Mhm.
even actually seen a grand piano. Walk into the this prof's office, and he has 2 grand pianos, and he sits behind this big oak desk and sits there, and he's listening and listening, and I bank crashed my way through some pieces, and he goes, and he goes, I hear something in there, and he took me on, and I was like, elated. I'm still not in the department yet. I just have
Mm.
this high level music professor who's going to be my teacher, and I mean, I was elated. That was already something that I could never have imagined, and so I worked with him for 4 months, and then I said at Christmas, "Do you think ever someday in a million years, kind of thing, would I ever be able to take an exam to get into the department and to actually study classical music, be a music major, like basically ditch my fine arts major?" Um, and he sat there and he thought again, and he goes, "Yeah, I think if you keep working hard," and I need to gain two levels, 2 grades of Royal Conservatory to even think about getting into an exam, because it's a very high level. And he goes, "If you work really hard, by April you could take the entrance exams." And
Mhm.
I I just burst into tears, and that was the most amazing news to me. So, I mean, that really tells me how passionate I was even then about just the
Yeah, yeah.
opportunity to study. Just put me in a room where people are talking about music. I had started in a university transfer. You have to take a science program and this and that. And I remember like studying biology and, but put me in music history, and I loved reading about Mozart and then about Beethoven, about all these greats. And it really was like nourishing me. And anyway, I took my entrance exams. Clearly I got in, and one of the top piano schools in Canada, had an amazing prof, and went on to get my bachelor of music degree. I actually ended up with a double degree in fine arts and music.
Mm.
Yeah, I just knew I needed to keep studying, and I did. And it was
Wow.
really tremendous I mean, with all these obstacles, to get a bachelor of music degree. And I was so disadvantaged compared to, like, there were so many students there. It started when they were 3, and their parents took them to the opera all the time, and I'm like, just learning about the whole thing. It was
Mhm.
fantastic. It was
That is
fantastic.
so interesting. I love your never give up attitude and how you
Mm.
stayed at it, and to realize that you got in for fine art. And are you still doing any kind of fine art related work right now?
I did for not right now. I did for quite some time. I even was professionally. I did shows, and I was selling
Mm.
paintings, and I became a single mom. And I mean, something had to give. Finally, it was like I was doing
Mhm.
sports, fine arts, and music. I just kept those 3 areas of my life going for a long time like that, because I kept
Got it.
training in sports,
Got it. Mhm.
kept doing my art, and also studying piano after I left school. Yeah. So
So
yeah.
interesting. So
Yeah.
interesting. Fine art. We have something in common. So when I was in college, the one of the fine art professors, I would walk through the fine art building to get to the communications building. I have my undergrad in communications, and every time I walked through, I didn't know that one of the professors was observing me. I do have a background in modeling, right? So I
Wow.
thought one day he stops me and says, "Hey, would you like to be a model for our fine art classes here in the fine art department?" I
Mhm.
said, "Well, I actually do model, so sure, why not?" So for a large, substantial part of the semester, I think 2 semesters when I was in college, I was the model for the fine art
Nice.
student. And what
Wow.
was so interesting was to see how everyone
Mhm.
interpreted me.
Yeah.
Some people drew me as an African American woman, others drew me as, an Asian woman, literally. Some
Mhm.
people drew me as a Caucasian woman. It was just so interesting to see each person's perspective when it came particularly to the facial features. I literally looked at, they drew me based on their own personal experiences. It was always so intriguing for me.
Very interesting, isn't it? So
Yeah.
subjective. You see,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
not an objective. Art is so subjective. Case in
Yeah.
point, right? So
Yeah. They were
amazing.
probably still learning. I mean, they were students. So,
Hmm.
to learn how to remove yourself maybe from that, or but maybe not, that's part of bringing your experience to the table as well. But I just was so intrigued by that. I never forgot. But
Yeah.
yeah, so to your fine art experience, that was an interesting, my I never got a chance to do fine art work, but definitely got to experience the department a
Hmm.
little bit.
And what it feels like even to be in those rooms where people are training, and there's such a beautiful, which I still miss in a way. There's nothing like settling into your drawing, and there's a zone and a quiet that takes over, and it's I'll get back to it again. I'm pretty sure, because I love that space so much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you could
Absolutely,
feel the room. It's so.
especially if you got a scholarship to go to college, and then even after that did the whole fine art, paintings and if you will, tours. I have a friend who's been nationwide and international, is a great artist. So
Mm,
lots of abstract paintings, attends a
mm,
lot of the big art festivals. And he's always emphasizing, when I first met him and to other artists, that it's so important to approach it from a business standpoint. And he's been
mm.
largely successful as a result of
Wow.
that, whereas a lot of his colleagues, not necessarily so. It was literally the starving artist mentality, because they
Mhm,
didn't approach it that way from a business standpoint. But he's really, really big on that,
mm,
which is a good transition. Is that talking about how you were able to build out a strong business base on with your music, and then we'll come to some of the challenges that happen along the way, including that discussion about being a single mom, because I know
mm,
it's something
mm,
you've shared, and then tie it all around back to the music. So let's start first with how you were able to build out your music. Have total of, I think, 4 or 5 albums you've dropped
mhm,
so far in
mhm,
your career.
mhm, mhm,
So what were some of the building blocks for all of our talent artists, particularly listening to this? How were you able to build out
mhm.
your career?
Yes, good question. How would I mean, I know sort of the trajectory, how it progressed for me is I started playing pretty much. I was a full-time gigging musician, pianist. Pretty much anywhere there was a piano in Vancouver, I was playing it. From the beautiful hotels to weddings to restaurants, um, and I was also working at CBC at the time, CBC Stereo, and I was
And for
exposed.
those, because since we have an international audience, for those who may not know, can you just expand a little bit more about that?
Yeah, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation. It's a national corporation. Uh, national. It's like PBS or BBC. So people know of the BBC. It's a
Yes,
station
yes.
like the BBC. That
Mhm.
would be more sister station. And so working there, I was exposed to a lot of music, as you can imagine. And it was a career position. I thought I would be ultimately a producer, and so I was working at CBC, and I was in. I heard all the Windham Hill artists. I don't know if you remember when the Windham Hill came out with all those beautiful acoustic tracks and the piano, and I started listening. I went. I just had this like, I could probably do that. I can do that. I wanted to do that. So I started writing my own music, and so while I was gigging, I started playing the music I was writing, that was inspired by Windham Hill artists. And you can still hear some of that influence in my earlier music, the Windham Hill kind of sound. And so that continued for a while, quite a number of years. And I think then I met my daughter's father, and he was from LA. He was in the film business, and he was developing something called a cable cam, and we were going to do something with music. I was going to, because I was a skier, we were going to do this really cool video skiing and the music, and hike up through the mountains and go through a crystal chandelier into the music, and it was beautiful. But I got injured on that shoot, and
Mm,
so that didn't
that's
come to.
interesting.
yeah, it didn't come to fruition, but we fell in love. and so that started me sort of on a little bit of film scoring. I did some scoring. His brother was a filmmaker, so my first we had a little baby, and and then his brother had this film, and it's like, come on, push me to the front of the line. You do the music, and I'm okay. Let's do it. And it was a great adventure. So I was scoring, and the more I scored, the more I realized that I was fulfilling other people's visions. I was trying to fit into parameters, and that was a great creative puzzle for sure, fitting into these boxes, like we want this, do this. And so I grew my chops doing that. But I soon went, I need to do my music. I need to record my album. And so I recorded an album, and then I never looked back. I then sometime after that I became a single parent, and film scoring. Single parenting is a full-time job. So I something had to give, and but I did produce that album. It's called In Search of Wings, and I did an album prior to that, but it's no longer in print, called The Gift of Music, and it was so well received, and I was encouraged to do the In Search of Wings album. And it was just more this feeling. You ask what motivated, how did I get started? It was seeing that that there was an impact with my music, and going, okay, rather than keep creating other people's visions, what is my vision, creative vision, and let's see if we can do that. And so I did my first real CD, and I got national distribution shortly after, and CBC picked it up across the country. And so then I got distribution, and that was that was revelatory. That was really kind of started me down this whole continuing that trajectory, really, of just writing music and recording it. And I never did return to scoring in any way, shape, or form, so.
Yeah. So let me sort of extrapolate some of the key things you're talking about. An artist, if you're watching, make sure you're taking notes, not only on the foundational level of building your business, first breaking into the industry that Lorianne's talked about, and how she was able to do that, and then diversifying the stream of income. And I think often artists, a lot of you, wait for people to come to you to make money rather than going. One of the key things Lorianne has talked about is gigging, right? And going and finding those gigs. And if there was any piano in Vancouver, she was there, or in Canada, she was there playing. She talks about diversifying her streams of income also with the film scoring part. You should be thinking about sync licensing and film scoring and all the other stuff that goes with it as well. And then she also talked about the harder work, getting into the studio and putting in the work and having an album out so you can get it to your potential fans, right? Lorianne, did you at any time do a tour of that album? I know you said CBC picked it up, but did you do
Yeah.
the specific tour of your album as well?
A number of adult contemporary radio stations picked it up, but still, as you know, I had a young child. I didn't feel I could tour, and I didn't pursue that at all. No, I didn't tour. Actually, it was just really not feasible. But I like
Yeah.
what you said about diversifying, and the way I did my first album is I got a book by Lorena McKennett, and it was a great Canadian artist, and she had how to do your first recording, and I did it, and I had a whole MIDI studio, because from film scoring I had lots of MIDI chops. I could underscore my own piano. I could arrange it. I had those capacities, and I had this way of recording it. I did the piano in a studio. I got a producer that could pull it all together, a really great producer. But it's just like getting determined and saying I'm going to do that, and then creating the steps and following through and doing it. I think that's not giving up. That's good.
Yeah, that overall principle applies whether you're on the continent of Africa, in Asia, or North
Mhm,
America.
mhm,
So important to emphasize that because I think people often think that, again, unless you're signing that major record deal or now even having an indie established label come to you, there's no other way of surviving. But you got to hit those streets. You got to hustle in your own way, regardless of what corner of the earth that you're located as talent, as an artist. Very important to emphasize that. Lorianne, I like also your underscoring of unique circumstances. Not everyone gets to be a super rock star. So the question is not, oh, I want to blow up and be
mhm,
famous and all that. Yes, if you have those aspirations, certainly pursue it. But the bigger question is, can you full time make money off your music to sustain you and sustain your family and also pass on that intergenerational wealth through all this intangible intellectual property that you're creating? And so,
mhm,
Lorianne, I like how you keep emphasizing that you were a single mom. And
mhm,
so that sort of meant a different route to get to putting your music out. So if you're a single mom or have other challenges that maybe precludes you from being able to follow the traditional means of marketing
mhm,
and promotions of
mhm,
your music,
mhm,
please diversify, please expand it to try different things. And then when you're in a situation where you could come back and do the traditional route, certainly take advantage of it if that's where you decide to go. And music marketing has changed so much that you should be able
mhm.
to find different means of doing that. So Lorianne, going back to the story of being a single mom and trying to juggle the realities of still pushing your music there, supplementing in other types of way with your income. Were you still doing the fine art at that point also?
I was at that point,
Okay.
and I was all there were again a variety of income
Income
streams.
streams, yeah,
Because, well, that's one has to be resourceful, and I
absolutely.
wanna say to something you said earlier is, like, probably nobody has the perfect circumstances. Don't look for perfect circumstances. Everyone's challenged in their own way to bring their art out. Um, so I really wanted to emphasize that. Is so in agreement with you, and gig and play and just allow yourself to keep developing and learning and believing in your own expression. And if one is doing it just to get quote rich and famous, it'll be very disappointing. But if you're doing it because you love it and you're expressing and it's an adventure and you have a dream, because dreams are like a big experiment. You can't do them wrong.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
so follow it through. Yeah. And so what was the other question you just asked me? Just can you
Oh,
just
no,
ask that
I was
again?
curious whether you were supplementing, and you mentioned that, yes, you were with the fine art
Yes.
as well,
Yeah.
that it wasn't exclusively just the music gig and you had to still supplement your income. And as you already said, you weren't necessarily following the traditional route as well
Mhm.
of marketing and
Mhm.
promotions because your reality was different. And taking a baby on tour with with the budget that comes with touring
Mhm.
certainly can be a
But I had
challenge.
radio support. See,
Yes, that too.
radio
Mhm.
makes
Makes
a
a
big
huge
difference,
difference.
a huge
Mhm.
difference, which is not available to the same degree now. Like, I mean, at least not with yes, it's changed, right? Things have changed. So the whole radio support, you can get, which I did, I got radio play all over the place, and that sold lots of albums, really. That first album did so well, like really, really well. I was really fortunate in that regard and was really cross Canada. It sold CDs. It was still CDs, Ms. Uduak.
Mhm.
So
Back in the days, yeah, we're talking
yeah,
CDs, and then that
yeah.
that evolution. We'll
Mm,
come to the present on streaming and how your career sort of changed as a result of that, and what you're doing now to,
mhm,
um, you know, leverage the new age of how music is distributed and how people are consuming music specific to you. But
mhm.
before we get there, one of the things I talked about in my introduction to you, introducing
Mhm,
my audience to you, was that your music is very focused on healing as well. Like a very,
mhm,
very different approach. You've got like a healing part to how you put music out. And I want to explore that a little bit because I know that
mhm,
for the most part, we don't necessarily get to the point of wanting to pour music or love, regardless of what that creativity is, to others to heal,
mhm,
unless at some point in that journey, we know what it feels like to experience pain.
mm,
So
yeah,
are
yeah,
you
yeah.
So I want to explore that, to have you go into some of that
Sure.
pain points or pain you shared or
Mm,
experience, which then made you say, I don't want to just do music to do music. I also want to have a healing part to it.
I love that question. I love that. Thank you. Sure. There was a 12 a 12-year period. I still am in wonder of it myself, but um, I was a single parent. Life was going on. I really released this album that was going great. I was working on my next CD that had a whole nother body of work. I had just gotten an executive producer, someone who was going to pay for the whole CD. Like, things were opening up. And a week after I got this financial support from my album and via this executive producer, I was diagnosed with breast cancer.
Mm.
And um, and actually, just the year before that, I have to go back 1 year. My best friend since I was 8 years old, she got cancer, and then a year later, like, then I had breast cancer. And there, of all the things we thought we'd be sharing as young women, it wasn't breast cancer, or wasn't cancer in general. So a year after I got cancer, she died. So that was my
Mm.
first big like grief of loss. But I was also still fighting for my own life. It was invasive. It was very aggressive cancer, and but still, this album was haunting me, and I was like, I'm not sure if I'm living or dying, and I wanted my daughter to have this this second album, this third album actually at that point. And so I did I did do this album event, about but before before this it's such a story, but I'll just try and keep it simple. But so I lost in a series in 12 years.
12 years.
I had breast cancer twice. I lost my best friend from cancer. My daughter's father died of cancer. My
Wow.
my new relationship, because of course, we broke up. So the man I was with, who I thought was my soulmate, he died of cancer. And right when he got cancer, then I had a recurrence of my cancer because I recovered.
Oh
And
my
right between the
gosh.
time I had recovered and just before he got cancer, I produced In the Wake of a Whisper. I still didn't know at that time if my body was going in the right direction or the wrong direction. But I created this beautiful album that actually got nominated for Best Instrumental Release at the West Coast Music Awards, which is such a testament that the spirit is just always magnificent, always fine, always just full of love and light. As I might have not felt that way in my mind sometimes, clearly, but it was a beautiful album. It came out. Then he died. My daughter's father passed from brain cancer like 3 months after receiving his third Academy Award for this
Wow.
cable cam that we had started building when we first met. He had a lot of success with this thing, and then also my father got cancer, but he
Oh my
survived. And
God. What?
crazy, right?
Wow.
I know. It's
That's
like,
like what, three people passed from it or four?
yes.
Three.
And
Three
then three
people.
people passed from cancer. I have cancer twice, and my younger brother, like my soulmate, dies from cancer. 8 months later, my younger brother is killed in a car accident. And so there's just like bam, bam,
Wow.
bam, bam. And so I left music for 8 years after my brother
Mhm.
died, and
Wow.
really focused on my spiritual, a spiritual practice really that I'd started at a very young age. I really retreated, really, really turned inward. But at the same time, I was, doing counseling, coaching, therapy work because the second time I got cancer, I had such a miraculous recovery. All these people started coming to me healing sessions, honestly. So I learned a lot about healing and life and psychology and all these things. So this journey, not only my journey, but supporting other people through their journeys. And so not only did I heal myself of that, and I'm really healed, but I have so many people that have had amazing transformations, not the least of which are two men. A young man who had come to me with terminal cancer, and he's like, quote unquote, well past his expiry date, his phrase, and thriving. And same with another man. I saw so many people. I was full-time supporting others in their own healing journeys, but I wasn't quite myself without my music. And at a certain point, I had a big epiphany and a big return back to my music, and that was in 2011 that occurred. But during that time, yes, I think what doesn't break you breaks you open to more love, to light. And I remember after my brother passed, and I was very, I felt very depressed, actually. It was tone. It was like it all finally had accumulated, and with tone, with my brothers, like a year later, I was still depressed. And I remember a very special friend said to me, how did she put it? Given what you've gone through, something like you may never be happy again, or something like that. And bam, it was like this amazing revelation that without trying to fix, change, or get rid of anything, and just go into full surrender and acceptance, there was just a deep and abiding peace, just such a depth of peace and equanimity, and that's never left, that remains. And of course, my health is fully recovered. So much of that journey has been just so transformative for me, and that spiritual path I just kept really on that spiritual path. Started at a young age, really became front and center. And it really does inform like that idea of being in service, and seeing all those people so full time, it was exhausting after a while, actually. And then I thought, well, I bet God's way more efficient than this. Like maybe I could play. Well, at first I had this big epiphany, actually, and it lasted for like 3 weeks, like a really big turning point. It was, I don't know if you want me to talk about that in this moment, but
yeah, but put a pin on it. I definitely
yeah,
want you to come back to that epiphany.
yeah.
The two things stand out. The first one, when you mentioned that 8-year period that you were pouring into other people, I found that interesting, because the first thing I was going to say was, well, what was your healing process? Because there's a tendency to want to go help others heal when we experience
Mm.
intense tragedy, trauma, etc. But then we are void. We've not been poured into yet, but we're trying to help others. And so it was interesting that you still finally arrived at the place of I'm still depressed and still going through all this, and I need healing my own self, and it's exhausting and overwhelming. It's great to pour into others, but often better to do so when we're full, not serving from a cup of
Oh,
empty.
okay.
So that
That
was very
may.
interesting to hear that 8 years you talked about. That's one thing. And then the second part is what struck me was the statement you said made by someone that you're never going to be happy again in light of everything you've gone through, right? I think you mentioned that, correct? Yes. And I've said, for me, in my lowest point, when people have said that to me, I've looked and said, "Oh, you got to be kidding me. Like, you're not helping me, you're not consoling me to make me feel like by virtue of the life's challenges that I've gone through, I will never be able to rise above it because, oh, poor me, because of those experiences. No, I'm going to rise above it and go beyond." So I like that for you. You said that's when something clicked, and you're like, if I have to live the kind of life I want, then I must essentially fight back. And I do believe in that concept of fighting back. Yeah. So those were the two key things I wanted to touch before you go back to that epiphany. But it seems like you had some other things you wanted to talk about.
Well, I feel like I need to clarify just a little bit in the chronology there. That 8 years, I think I got just as much healing as the people. I was having other people pour into me in terms of healing, and then I was helping others. And as you help others, I also help myself. I also,
Got it.
every time there's an energetic shift over there, there's a shift here too. Like we're all in this soup together in a way. And it was a way that I was taking care of myself. Like I let go of the music. I dropped my distributor. It was just
me time.
completely refocused. But it was in the context of a deep, like meditative 8 years. And that was really nourishing to me. And that then I did have something to give to others. I don't think they would have made the shifts they made. And after 8 years, I was finished. I guess I was renewed in some respect. And then that epiphany occurred that pulled me back to the music. And yeah.
Okay.
So does that
So
make
was
more
that the
sense?
epiphany you were trying to transition to then to now talk about that epiphany?
Sure.
Is that what you wanted to talk about, how the epiphany pulled you back to the music?
Yeah.
Okay,
Because I
sure, please
wasn't doing
share.
music. I think because you asked what then was how did it come about that I was feeling I could be in service with the music, or that I could touch, pour
Absolutely,
love through.
absolutely.
And it was that epiphany. And I was running in a forest next to an ocean. Beautiful, beautiful time listening to sacred music in my headset, and just landed so clearly this idea of returning to my music, but a vision for what I could do with it, which had been lost. I had lost my way with music. What was I doing? What was it for? And so I found my what for, and it was really this idea of music as a bridge, to spirit, to the divine, to connect. And it went on for about 3 weeks. And even at one point, I it's like God said, "Lend me your hands." And I just love that image of just being a conduit. If I could, please let me be a conduit and be of use and of service in that way. And so I had a vision for these transformational journeys, and how that, of all the things my music is not, what people tell me it is that there's a beauty in it, and that there's this energy in it. I thought, I can do that. I can create these music journeys with the pure, unadorned beauty of the piano, and that was enough, and it would be enough, and I didn't have to be anything more than that. And it really inspired me, and I wrote my first, so back into the studio, sleeves rolled up, was on fire with creating my first transformational, music journey called The Sacred Beauty.
That's
And
amazing.
stepped
That's
into
amazing.
performing, and yeah, I haven't looked back since. So.
That's amazing. There was something you talked about before we start getting ready to now bring it back to present day, and
Mhm.
streaming and where people
Mhm.
can find your music, among other things. There was something you talked about, um, finding efficiency. You said at some point, God, there's got to be a more efficient way of doing this. Can you expand a little bit on that? Was that in relation to the healing process for others and you? What did you mean by that?
Yeah, I felt like, groups united in one heart are powerful vehicles of change. I thought, let's play music, and it's not one on one, it's one on however many show up, basically. And that could I then bring all that healing energy that I clearly am a healer? Could I bring that through and still reach and touch people? And it's in alignment with my spiritual side, and in alignment with my kind of disposition in life, if you like. And just wondered, it was just a wondering, could I do this with music? And I'm still in the
Mhm.
wondering, could I do this? I don't know yet for sure 100%. It's only that just thought, yeah, 100 people, let's say, I'm just making up that number, united in one heart and one voice through music with an intention of unity and love and
Mhm.
grace, that there's a
Mhm.
great wisdom in the space that tends to each person. And I thought, oh, wouldn't that be amazing that each person gets tended to in the way they need it, and that there's a great benevolent wisdom in the space that just gently aligns this. And I hear people crying in the audience sometimes. They have a great emotional release, or they just feel their love, or things happen. And so I think, well, maybe that for that person, they got what they needed, and someone else gets what they needed. And that's the nature of music in general, isn't it? Really, I'm not
Absolutely,
saying
absolutely.
anything new, but for me to feel that genuinely as I did, that's what's special to me, but
So, Lorianne, let's bring it all to the current present time. We're talking about CDs back in the days,
yeah,
but
right.
now we're talking streaming. So, what is going on now that you're at a place where you feel like you're creating again and still trying to find that clarity of
Hmm.
voice and purpose with respect to how do you deliver this message of love to the world at large? So, how are you incorporating the whole revolution, streaming revolution, if you will, into your music? How can people get you, and what does it look like in terms of the future and your current projects that you're working on?
Hmm. I think the future is very exciting now, which it wasn't even a few years ago. We didn't know really. We've been wondering how things were going to settle, what was going to be the way. So clearly, it's not selling CDs and selling music, but this whole streaming thing and the digital world and Clubhouse, like audio, that's changed everything for me. There's this. We met on Clubhouse. It's an audio only app. Now there's a global audience
Mhm.
through your smartphone. You can tune into a concert, and I can play to people all around the world, and I have been, and that's incredibly exciting. It's just a game changer for me. And so what does it translate into? I mean, streaming, I think, is not a moneymaker. Thinking I'm going to make any money on Spotify. That's I don't know about that. I know there are those who are doing that as an income stream, maybe not so good, but certainly as a discovery vehicle, it's great and convenient for people for sure. But to me, the future is in some of these new apps, and the idea of even working with Twitch and you building your communities and I haven't explored Twitch yet, but I will, where, now it's video and audio, and you again create communities. And like I love on Clubhouse, I've really gelled with the community of people that, I just love and adore. Like this community, somehow you find, I don't even know how, I sort of fumbled forward in there and found a group of creatives, yourself included, that just really nourish me and fill me full of hope and optimism for music. I mean, I'm just delighted to have people like yourself and others who are just so supportive, but getting something impacted by the music. And, you know, that's, if nothing else happened, I'm so gratified, really. I mean, from the time that piano first rolled in, I could not have imagined this. Like, I mean,
I know,
Clubhouse,
right?
the people I've met there, I would never have met in a million years in Vancouver, for example, and playing for them, playing in the entertainment law room, and I could never have imagined that. And it's just fantastic. And there's more to come with as these platforms roll out. So I'm really excited about that. I'm excited about playing concerts. I've got a concert in Clubhouse coming up November 21st, 2 p.m. and on Clubhouse. So, I mean, but imagine you can be walking in the forest with your phone and attend a live concert. It's
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 amazing. And
revolutionary.
let me plug you in. I mean, you guys, I have been to her very first
Yes.
Clubhouse concert. It is like you almost feel like, "Am I supposed to be here?" From a standpoint of, you have to pay top dollars to
Mm,
get into the quality of concert that Lorianne puts up. I mean,
Mm,
you're literally at the front row seat, and it's literally an amazing journey from the beginning till the end.
mm,
So beautiful, so worth it. And of course, come support her, donate
mm,
to that concert
mm.
as well.
Thank you.
Quality, top notch. Please believe that. And I've had the opportunity to attend all kinds of events, both in the US and internationally during my travels as well. Definitely off
Mm,
the hook if people still say that, or just
mm.
wow, just amazing. So actually, Lorianne, that's a great transition to finally close it out with maybe just a little piece. I like Love's Last Breath. That's off
Oh, okay.
what particular I think that's your third album, right?
Vistas is actually the 6th or 7th. So that's
Okay. Well,
on, but
on your Spotify, it has, your 3 albums or 4. I think that's
I
okay.
know. I've
Alright.
been negligent in uploading all of that, and I'm
So
gonna
so
get better at that. But
so go to Lorianne Speed. You guys see here, Lorianne Speed, so you see all the latest, albums. That's her direct website, but maybe we should close it out with that, or what do you wanna close it out with that? And it doesn't have to be a whole piece, just a teaser, so people
yeah,
that are
yeah.
joining us now
Mm,
get an
mm.
idea where, how amazing your music is and where they need to go get it. Go to
Thank you.
loriannespeed.com.
Or my
Her
or IGs. There's a
her
LinkedIn.
IG, yes,
IG.
your
There's a
IG
LinkedIn.
or your IG or LinkedIn. But your website, no matter what happens with social media, like I always tell anyone, social media is
Mm,
always changing 24/7. And sometimes we change it as well and forget that we on a show or
mm,
interview said XYZ, right? But
mm,
the website stays constant no matter what. So make sure you go to loriannespeed.com, lori-annspeed.com to check out
mhm.
Lorianne. In the meantime, of course, her IG is also available and her LinkedIn.
Yeah, yeah.
And just for those who are just joining us, repeat the IG, please, Lorianne.
It's at Lori underscore Ann Speed. Lori underscore, because you can't do a dash. It's very I've got a problematic name. Okay, that
Yeah.
let's call it
On
that.
your website, can they see the link to your Instagram and LinkedIn as well if they go to your website?
No, not
Okay.
yet.
So I'm
I've
sure they'll
actually
be
note
able
to
to
self.
add those, yeah, those social media buttons as well. All right, Lorianne, do you want to do just something maybe
Yeah.
not that long at all? Just maybe close us out?
And Love's Last Breath actually does show up in several albums with different arrangements. So
Got
you're
it.
not mistaken when you saw it on one album and then you saw it in the Vistas album. It's arranged where it's sometimes a solo, sometimes arranged a different way. So
Got
okay,
it.
I'm
Got
gonna
it.
go.
Got it.
So
Got it.
this is Love's Last Breath.
I love
I'll
It's
just
an
play
amazing
till you.
song.
How long should I play for? Are you just gonna
Just a
roll out?
little bit, and then I'm going to remove you from the stream and put you in the green room. So play a little bit so I can close it out with you, and then
Okay.
I'll close it out with everybody else as well.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
thank you so much,
Okay.
everybody, for being here, and thank you so much.
You're welcome. All right. So she's going to play Love's Last Breath, and then we'll talk and then go to the stream when I close it out. Amazing, Lorianne. Oh my gosh. Thank you so, so much for coming, for joining us, for blessing us with your amazing talent, for sharing your amazing, amazing story with us. Totally appreciate you. Please wait in the green room and I will be right with you. Let me close it out with our audience. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, sorry, Lorianne, you were trying to say, I
just want to say thank you so much. It's
You're
been such
welcome.
a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Wow, everyone, that was just so amazing. I mean, Lorianne is so talented. Please be sure, let me put some things up here. Her website, loriannespeed.com. You can also find her on IG. And of course, as well, who joined us today, neoclassical composer, pianist, recording artist. You can find her on Clubhouse as well. And she has an upcoming concert that she talked about. So please, please, please check her out. Check out her website for more details. We will be leaving you pretty soon, and I will catch you all next week. In the meantime, go to africamusiclaw.com to stay updated on everything we're doing. Simply sign up for our newsletter so that you never miss out. All right. Thank you so much. Cheers.